Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karavavahe Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahe Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So in verse 26 and 27, we talked about the inevitability of destruction, which means that destruction, whether we accept it or not, is essential to life. It's actually something that moves you forward in life, and without which you cannot advance, and you cannot get rid of your ignorance. We wouldn't, have opportunity to be here, because it will be an overpopulated world of people who are just not willing to give us a space to live out our desires, our dreams. So in that same manner, we have to one day give space to this earth for the generations to come, for them to live out their desires and their dreams and for them to remove their ignorance and work out their stuff. And the irony is that if we are afraid of this destruction, this force that moves, that paves the way, that sweeps like a big hand, if we're afraid of it, then the irony is this very force is going to then destroy you. So in other words, you have no anxious, right? Anxiety and is going to, just create just diseases at the physical level. So this means that the faster one comes to a point and says, I actually embrace not knowing what's going to come tomorrow. Because look at this, the fact that tomorrow will come, can you say that you have no connection to tomorrow? Tomorrow will come, but can you say you have no connection to tomorrow? So this means right? You can't. So this means that if tomorrow is a design of Ishvara and you are connected to tomorrow, it means that you're not outside Ishvara's design. Because if you were, then tomorrow doesn't apply to me. Like, who cares about tomorrow? Tomorrow is going to be for them. But you who are saying that are going to be there tomorrow. Now, tomorrow is Ishvara's grand design. So this means that if I am connected to tomorrow, it means that you and I are not outside of the whole. So in this manner, the person comes to a point and says, hey, I have a life to work out. I have things to work out while alive. And while I'm alive, I have a certain duty for my family, for the world, for my work, and so on. And while you're playing this duty out, there is this kind of anxiety. What's going to happen tomorrow? I don't know. And, what then? And so this means that one has to let go of this and say, whatever happens, it is going to happen anyway. So the first thing we come to a point and we say, as we said last week, is to acknowledge, hey, I am anxious. I'm anxious about tomorrow. I am anxious about 5 years from now. I am anxious about 10 years from now. That's a fact. So the first thing is I come to acknowledge the fact. And doing this, it just relieves us from this sense of, this anxiety of what's going to happen. So the first thing you can do is you can almost say, I can hardly wait to lose out on those things that will be taken away from me. That's not how we usually go about things, isn't it? We say, no, I want to keep things in my life, and things are so important to me. But just for a moment, change that paradigm around and say, I actually expect those things in my life that are important to be taken away from me. I'm actually waiting for those close things in my life to be taken away from me. Come on. Bring yourself forward. Be taken away from my life. So when you come from this place, then you gain a certain power. Whereas if I stay in this mode of, oh, I'm afraid of tomorrow, then, right, it kind of just, brings you down. The second thing is that we said is that this force of destruction is a law, like a law of gravity. Now, law of gravity, right, depends on how you use it. You can either maximize it for your, for sending satellites into space, or we can become sort of a little bit fearful of it and, not really, just violate and say it doesn't matter and I can just jump off a cliff and die. So this means that the laws don't change according to our fancies. So this means that the only truth of life is that I need to acknowledge these laws and I need to bring them into my life and work with them. And then the question is, how do I work with law of destruction? And we said through prayers. I can start to converse and say, dear law of destruction, which is one of the aspects of Ishvara, I want you to help me by removing those unfavorable things from my life that don't serve me anymore. Please help me to, make it, to remove these things that are just not healthy anymore. And you can say things like, help me to remove these unhealthy habits, unhealthy thoughts that are recurring in nature. Help me to remove toxic thoughts or those childhood thoughts or those concerns or jealousy or competition, this need to compare to someone else, or help me to remove, right, health issues. So anything that is undesirable, you come to ask this force of destruction to help you. The thirdly, we said, is that when life presents you with a situation, there's always two roads that we can go. There's always two options. There is something that I can do about that in that situation, and there's something that I can't do. Now, we need to discern this. If I spend, because the mind likes to spend time on those things, it likes to entertain itself on things that I can't control at all. So we need to make a decision and say, out of this situation right now, what locus of control do I have? For example, in some confrontation, suppose there's someone that's right confronting and they're at your workplace. Then, of course, there is something that you can't do. You can't change them. You can't change their personality. You can't change your work. You can't change the commute, the traffic, and so on. But what can you change?
You can change your mindset, the way you feel, the way you accept the situation.
Yeah, you can say this situation is here and I have to deal with it. And I can speak the facts. I can say my part. And if the other person doesn't agree, I have done my job. I've done my work. Just like when Krishna, he has come to negotiate with, with Dhritarashtra, and then Duryodhana said he doesn't want to give anything back. And Krishna did his part, right? He came out, and then someone asked him, did you not find it offensive to be kind of, talked down upon? And Krishna says, no, because I came here not to get entangled in other personalities and so on. I just came here to, according to my clarity, do my little part. I've done it. Duryodhana hasn't listened, and right now there's a consequence to that. So this means you keep life very, very simple. But the mind, if it kind of ignores these two concepts, then it says, well, now, then it starts to complain and, it didn't work out. And then I should have said this. I came from the wrong place. So it starts to find reasons now why it could have done better and how it could have done something different. So this just one little change. What can I, in this moment, control? I can control my attitude. I can see things differently. I can say, this person may not be complying, or life is not working out for me right now for whatever reason. Why? Because maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I need to wait a little bit longer. Maybe I don't have all the facts right now. Maybe that it's just not the right season. It's just not the right timing. Right? There are variables that are going on. So this means I have to understand the laws do not work according to my fancies, but it is for me to align my fancies to the laws. So this is how we start out. My fancies overlap the laws, but now I look at these laws and then I start to say, I have no choice but to align my fancies with the laws. And what are those laws? Well, law of destruction. The fact is, tomorrow, what you enjoy right now can be taken away like that. This is a fact. It's going to happen. It may happen eventually. It will happen. So this means that there's actually a story of in Mahabharata how everything that gets taken away from you is actually a opportunity in disguise. And can you relate to this when something has been stripped away in your life, some chapter, right, that you sort of you fancied, and it just turned around like overnight, and it just was no more. And you missed it. You missed the old the old person, the old situation. But then very quickly you realized that, hey, a new door has opened for me. Can you relate to this? I hope so, right? This is it's actually such a beautiful thing to recognize is that, yes, initially there's this pain, but then as you go through this pain, then, right, Ishvara blesses you with, some new opportunity, some new chapter. So in Mahabharata, there is a story of King Nala, and his wife was Damayanti. So he had everything going for him. He had his wife Damayanti, he had children, he had money, he had the kingdom. So, right, so imagine you're in that position and people are honoring you and they're cherishing you and so on. Now, he had a dice game with his brother and he lost the dice game. So this is a similar situation to Yudhishthira. And as he lost his dice game, he was also exiled with his wife to the forest. So while in the forest, they carried nothing with them, and the little clothes that the king had, he tried to catch a bird, and the bird he missed, and the bird was a strange bird. The bird packed the clothes, the last piece of clothing he had to keep himself warm, and the bird flew away with the clothing. So now he had no clothing at all. So that was the last little ownership of possession that it was taken away from him. So now he only had himself and his wife. And eventually, he had to leave her because he thought the forest is too dangerous and I'm going to just walk out while she's sleeping because, I just don't want to see her hurt. And he just continued going his way. He eventually came across another king called Rita Parna, and he became a great charioteer of this king in his court and became really good with horse skills. But he also became extraordinary with mathematics and playing dice. So all of this took in, I don't know, a couple of years, this perfection of logic and mathematics and thinking and working things out and acquiring skills. And long story short, his wife, she had a second Swayamvara, right? And she was there, and obviously there were these warriors to demonstrate their skills. And because he acquired all of those skills at, his king's court, then she recognized him and they came back together. And now he became king again with more skills, with, again, wonderful wife, with more wisdom, with mathematics, with great logic. And so he was able to guide his subjects. So, it's a nice story to show you. There's many stories like this. We all got stories where, right, you were taken 2 steps back. What do they call it? No, you were taken 1 step back only to go 2 steps forward. And then again, life does something. It sends you, right, 1 step back, but only you wait a little bit longer and then you go 2 steps forward. Maybe I'll share my story, and then if you come up with something, it's fine if you don't. So a couple of years ago, I was online and I was just selling some stuff online on eBay. I had a very successful product. It's a car-related product. And, I used to do a very, very good per month, every month. And someone, right, you got competitors always. Someone saw that product, so they thought they'd take the entire sales letter, the copy that I've written, and word for word, they duplicated it. And they started to sell their product using my sales letter. In fact, they actually took my product also and just rebranded it. So everything's the same, just different name. So it's basically 99% copy. And people started to contact my customer service and say, can you help me? And I always ask them, give me your order number so I can look you up. And so I realized that these are not my order numbers. Anyway, I found out this was, many listings on eBay were all my products. So obviously, right, what will you do? You will contact Amazon or whatever. This was eBay in this case. And I provided the case studies, and they said, I was here first. I was selling this for many years, and this person is stealing my product. So they took down his listings. Now you think the world in a perfect place, right? The person would, say, I'm sorry and so on. This could happen, but this person didn't do that. So what do? They retaliated. So they somehow created such a good case study that they sent to eBay to make me the guilty one, and they're the victim. I don't know how they did that. And somehow eBay took down all of my listings, which was the main seller, right? So this was doing about, at that time, this is 10 years ago, about 30,000 a month. And so it's not like small money, it's a lot of money. And I'm employing people and so on. So it's, I'm giving jobs to people. So I can't afford to let this product go down. And I thought, well, this is impolite. So I generated my case studies to show to eBay that this person is clearly the bad guy. Nothing worked. I tell you, no matter how many case studies I sent, what proof, how many screenshots, all of the sales, eBay just wasn't buying it. So long story short, I never again got to sell that product on eBay. So that's minus 30,000 a month like that. So up to this day, I never sold it because this guy, even if I did put it on, hoping he's not going to see, he saw it and he immediately contacted eBay to take it down again. How would most people look at this situation, right? My life is over. It's just gonna, right, induce so many, right, thoughts that are not advantageous, that are not healthy, that are disempowering, that are you could put in a negative category. But no, because as an entrepreneur, there's one thing we all learn. Every setback, every force of destruction that sweeps even those good things away from your life is actually a hidden opportunity in disguise. So what did I do? I say, it doesn't really matter because selling on eBay is kind of you're employed 24/7. You don't respond in 5 hours, you get negative feedback. So you're almost like a slave. And I thought about this and I said, I don't want to sell on eBay at all. I'm just going to just look at all of my website and I'm going to turn all my attention on the website. So what happened? Slowly, more traffic to the website, and now it's right. It was fantastic. So I brought the sales back up even further up than that, and no longer did I have to sell on this eBay, which was constantly taking up my time. So in other words, I went from slave, right, slave working for eBay, right, having to answer these emails every 5 hours, into your own website. Now, website is wonderful because you don't have to answer emails. You can outsource it. If you don't answer in 7 days, hey, you're still fine. There's no problem there. Someone came to take your life away, but through thinking, knowing where is my locus of control, I was able to turn it around into the best thing that's ever happened in the business career, which is to free yourself. That's the whole point. You don't want to be a slave working, but just having freedom to teach, to learn, to go and travel. So this was exactly what verse 26 and 27 is talking about, turning things around, and all you have is your mind to think, what now? This has happened, it's unpleasant. First thing, what now? How can I turn this into an opportunity?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I can't put my video on, but I wanted to share. Thank you for sharing that story. And I wanted to share a similar story, how a few months ago, so I'm an amateur, I'm a serious amateur musician, and I've been playing with my band for over 5 years now. And some months ago, we're a small band, we're 3 people. And one of the members who had been showing increasing signs of disconnection and not able to show up for the rehearsals and etc., came out of the blue and said, I cannot do this anymore. I have to put my attention to some other things, and we'll see what happens down the line. But there was no timeline. It was just kind of suddenly the whole thing collapsed. Right, because it depended. If it's only 3 people, if one of the 3 goes,
Yeah,
we didn't really have a structure. So it's like I was very distraught by this and very upset by it. It was like temple for me. Going to this once a week rehearsal was very meditative. It's very my spiritual temple of sorts of expression. And I became so lost without it. And so many emotions came up, so many thoughts of anger and upset and a whole different view of this person than what I had previously. And I went through so much upheaval. It felt like my life had collapsed and I needed some guidance and some grounding. Stumbled upon your website.
She was looking for guidance after this, right? Member has departed, or she wanted to make meaning out of things. So she took this experience of life that just it throws itself at you, right? Everything's going well. It just throws itself at you. And you always have your mind with you. You always have your thoughtfulness with you. You always have what's next. You always have tomorrow with you. So this means that we fully, right, accept that, acknowledge that, and we just, go along with that, because Ishvara's possibilities, that's all Ishvara is, just endless possibilities. And I just have to ask the question, one simple question: what now? What's next? Like, what are you trying to show me? Now, we're not trying to turn Ishvara into something right over there. What are you trying to show me? But just as a conversation to, right, to engage and to get your mind a little bit, right, thinking. So everything that happens, whether it's a music band, disbandment, or business collapse or whatever, it really is hardly ever the end of the rope. It's just, in fact, it's just put the rope aside. Here's a new chapter. It's opening up, and let's explore that chapter. So this is always given to us. So it's never too late, no matter what age you are, what position you're in. It's not about being in a music band or being in a business. It doesn't matter. These are just examples. The point is, everything is within Ishvara's order, and Ishvara is possibilities. And since you are within Ishvara's order, you too, everyone can collapse those possibilities. Which is why we don't have this thing of, well, what about those kids in Africa or those who are born in unprivileged families? You're not in that position, okay? So, right, there's no point worrying about that. So everyone is given equal opportunity. Everyone, no matter where you're born, can rise to the top, can slowly rise by asking the right questions, by making different kind of, transactions, different deals, going to the different kind of people. It's always available to everyone. So this is why, Ishvara is like the most fair, the fair power there is. It's always saying, hey, it's okay. You made all those mistakes before. It's okay. Here's one more chance to correct yourself. But how do human beings go about it? Oh, remember how you said that? And now you want this from me? No. In fact, we can, right, use Krishna's example. So now when Duryodhana was mistreating Krishna, then, right, later on, both Arjuna and Duryodhana walked into the Lord's, right, the court, and they both requested the Lord's help. Now, the Krishna say to Duryodhana, hey, wait a minute, you want my army? Remember how you were mistreating me? I don't think so. Now I'm going to punish you. So this is how our idea is of Ishvara. Oh, I did that, therefore I'm being punished, and it's my karma, and I cannot collapse these additional possibilities because Ishvara is holding me down. This is all, right, these funny notions that have to be destroyed by asking, Lord, help me destroy this idea that you are punishing me. You're not being punished. This is just an idea. Look at this. If all there is here is Ishvara, how can Ishvara punish Ishvara? Do you think you're different from Ishvara? So how can Ishvara punish Ishvara? It doesn't make sense. It's like the ocean is punishing the ocean, right? It doesn't work. So this idea has to be let go. And second of all, I have to accept that every moment, every day, you are given an opportunity to keep on rising and rising and rising and rising. There's just no ending to it. It's just up to you. What do you want to collapse? So this is the fairness system that is always given to everyone.
I wasn't going to share a big story, but it just brings up a question that I've not been able to, I guess, understand yet, which is the distinction between destruction and violence.
Sure.
Is that a simple matter of will? Because sometimes these terms used differently, like in that story, Krishna has to, or not Krishna, sorry, I forget the names, has to kill some of his family or something as part of the larger order.
Right.
But if we were to transpose that into humanity, then that would be, do you know what?
Got it.
I'm trying to get at? Yeah.
Got it. So the question is there a difference between violence and law of destruction. Let's take a quote, a criminal, right, with tendencies to flame. What happened in Melbourne, right? They flame the cigarette stores, right? Arson. And now you're given something called what's Jiva Srishti. So let's just take two terms. Jiva Srishti. Jiva Srishti is anything that is related to how do I make use of what is given to me? Simplicity. Now, there's another reality called Ishvara Srishti. Srishti means creation. So Ishvara Srishti is your brain, your physical brain, like neurons in the brain. Now, everyone is given Ishvara Srishti brain, right? We're all given a brain. Now, brain will, right, go through destruction. It will, right, the cells will die. Is that called violence? Is Ishvara being violent towards your brain? No, that's just simple order of the cells have died, so they have to be removed. So that's force of destruction. However, what I can do now, using my own Jiva Srishti, my own ideas and imagination, in simple term, imagination, is I can say, okay, so here's what's given to me: a knife, a hammer, and petrol. So now I can use petrol to fill up my car, or I can use that petrol to, right, pour it over a store and then put fire over it. Now that is called violence. That's called violence. Now, can you attribute that violence to any one of those cells in your brain, any particular cells, which is Ishvara Srishti, by the way? Can you say, like, okay, so cell, like the prefrontal cortex, there's one cell there that is violent. This is a violent cell in the brain. I know I've already read the stats, how they try to find violence. They did some, scans on, criminal brains. They want to see if they can find some attributes, some violent cells. It doesn't work like that because they're still right at the matter level. They're still at the brain level. So I can use what's given to me, and I can change the electrical impulses through my own free will. And I can say, I'm now going to, right, move these neurons, make different neurons fire in such a way that it's going to move this instrument and it's going to pour petrol over a store. That's Jiva Srishti. That's all my own idea. That's violence. But the cells going through a natural birth and destruction, that's not violence. That's just the law of destruction, right? Paving way for new growth of the brain, new growth of new day, new babies, new life, and so on. So no, there is it's a different term, violence and law of destruction.
Yeah, Andre, and what I feel is sometimes for Ishvara to do something good for you, he might make things difficult for you. Like you said, initial pain, but later, in hindsight, when you look at it, you feel, yes, this was the best thing that could have happened to you.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, it's only the grace which can allow us to take it smoothly. Yeah, you can use your intelligence and try to fight that situation. But if you are able to have a positive mindset and go through it, later you see that, yes, this was the best thing that could have happened. This
is also something you're given to collapse that simple understanding that it is indeed, and then you need to give yourself a reason. Otherwise, we don't want, this is not about positive thinking, but you're looking at simply what is happening right now and what new doors, what new insights am I available to that I simply was not available to at that time. So based on that observation, you recognize that that had to happen, that unpleasantness had to happen, but in hindsight, it was not pleasant nor unpleasant. It was just, right, part of my life, which has brought me this. But now when you say the word grace, so grace is not something that we sort of just get randomly. Grace is also earned. Grace is earned through your own thinking, through your own efforts, through your own attitude changes, through your own mindset, through your own decision-making, through your own free will. So, right, grace is something that we talk about in Ishvara Nugraha, right? But Ishvara Nugraha is simply just self-effort in line with what is to be done. Right? Otherwise, I'm not going to get any grace at all, right? Because we can have so many popular musicians and people in such privileged positions And how do they end up their life? What happens in their life? It's not a smooth ride at all, right? And they got everything. They got fame. You could name it all. It's all there. So this means that even if I'm given everything, it does not mean I'm graced. So the grace is something that I have to keep on earning every single day. Often we think, hey, I've gotten the grace, I can now rest. Is this true? You need to keep earning grace every single day. You need to keep earning punyam every single day. New punyam needs to get generated through your actions. So there's no question of, you know what? I donated, I gave to charity 10 years ago. I did that. Hey, that was 10 years ago. If you want punyam right now, I have to continue doing that. It's simple as that. It's wonderful that this is how the setup is made, that the person cannot say and get away by saying, I did that some time ago. I have to keep on generating new punyam. That's just how it is. This is called working with the laws. Therefore, the question is, you're asking yourself this, what will I do to keep on receiving punyam? What will I do? What can be done to keep on receiving my, additional punyam in my life? Now, whatever answer to that is when you do get it, we call that grace. But how did grace come? By asking the question, what is it that will come into my life? What will I engage with to bring more grace into my life?
I think gratitude.
Gratitude, of course, is part of recognizing, to kind of, make you okay with what you have, so that the mind doesn't fall into this, what I don't have, because the mind loves to do this thing, what I don't have, what's not working out, what could be better, what should be better. So the way to twist that is through, appreciation. Here's what I actually have. Here's what's working in my life. Here's the opportunities that I do have. Here's the possibilities that I do have given to me. I can think this in a different light. I can think this in a more positive, more uplifting light. It's absolutely available to me. There's no person holding a gun to my head and saying, don't think differently. No one's doing that. So the only one that's holding a gun to our head is ourselves. We're holding a gun to it. No, you can't. No, just put it down. That's another possibility. Put it down. Let me think differently. So it really comes down to using this instrument in a different manner, how it's meant to be used. In verse 28, whatever you are given, where was it before it was given to you? It was in unmanifest. So let's read verse 28. Avyakta dini bhutani, vyakta madhyani bharata, avyakta nidhananyeva, tatraka paridevana.
Bharata, Arjuna, all beings are unmanifest in the beginning, manifest in the middle, and again, unmanifest in the end. What indeed is there to grieve about?
So the question is, where was this opportunity before it came to you? Avyakta dini bhutani, it was in the state of unmanifest. And then when you use your mind, your thinking to ask the question, what else can I get out of this? What is this? What does this mean? What is the message here for me? Then through that question, what happens? Vyakta madhyani bharata, that opportunity, that possibility becomes manifest in your life. It becomes manifest as a thought. Aha, I got it. Some insight has come. Now, what happens if, that thought, you just want to put it aside and think of something else? Well, avyakta nidhanani eva, for a length of time, it lasts and then it goes into unmanifest again. So anything in creation like this, it wasn't there. And then circumstances happen, a cause happens, you put a cause into the universe. By the mere putting cause into the universe, it brings it out of infinite possibilities, which is what Ishvara is. One of those possibilities is now brought out, and it's witnessed in the form of a conversation, a person, a thought, a memory, an insight, an epiphany, whatever it is. And then, it goes into unmanifest again, and then a new thought gets manifested. So all life like this, anything in creation, it wasn't there, including the whole universe. The whole thing wasn't there at some point. And then out of nowhere, out of concepts, out of intelligence, comes out the entire universe. And then even within the universe comes the principle of a single-celled bacteria, like a cyanobacteria. Where was that cyanobacteria at the moment of Big Bang? It wasn't there, but it came. It came somehow. We don't know how, but it came somehow. In fact, science does know a little bit how, but right, whether to know this completely or not, this is a different story. In fact, would it really change your life if you knew exactly how the universe came about? Oh, wow. Now I know how the universe comes. Okay. And life continues. You still have to do what you have to do, right? So now everything that was in unmanifest, everything that is manifest now was in unmanifest some time ago, and it will become unmanifest again. So can you then realistically, this is the reality, can you realistically expect anything to last forever? See, this is understanding the laws, embracing the laws, including that initial high when knowledge takes place of moksha. When moksha takes place, that means the thought, like it clicked, it is a click, like I got it permanently. Even the high from that, is that going to last forever? No, that too was unmanifest. The possibility I collapsed to understand that me and Ishvara is one, and that high initially, you kind of go through whatever it is. I don't know how it is for people, right? They go through 3 days or whatever, 5 days or a whole week of high. They usually feel very, happy, exhilarated. Oh my God. And that too, guaranteed will go into unmanifest. But what stays? The knowledge. Just like knowledge, 1 + 1 = 2. Whether you're happy about that knowledge or not, does that change the fact that 1 + 1 = 2? No. So moksha is simply recognition of your nature. All of the things that are attached with that recognition, like the high, the happiness, the exhilaration, the lightness, the positivity, which is, usually comes along with it, all of that is going to get into unmanifest. But what's going to remain? The knowledge. Whether the body is going through a hard time, my nature is, right, awareness. Whether my body is going through a, happy time, my nature still remains awareness. So therefore, the truth doesn't change. So, and then we have an example of a seed. I said last week, right, the seed was in a state of unmanifest while the tree was there. And then the tree gave somehow birth to the seed, and then the seed gives itself up. It goes into unmanifest to manifest the tree, and then the tree again produces another seed, manifests another seed, and like this, the cycle never ends. So if you take this with a tree, you can take this with anything. So anything in creation shares this cause-effect relationship. Now, just because I can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you cannot see your causal body, your samskaras, it doesn't mean it's not there, right? Right, DNA, for example, you can kind of see, you can kind of infer because it's physical. Your grandparents were there, and so on. But it's the same thing with the subtle body, the same thing with the causal body. So anything in creation, cause and effect relationship. So what it wants to say is that there's no death. Anything that is here now, there is no time ever when it did not exist. Think about this. Whatever exists right now, there was never a time when it was not existing. It was simply in unmanifest, waiting. Where was the computer in 1500s? Where was the idea of a transistor in the 1500s? Could you say it was non-existent? Because if it was non-existent, why do we have it now? So we can't say it's non-existent. We can only say the principle of putting silica together or silicon together and sending an electric current through it, that possibility was already there. It was just a matter of thinking and putting those thoughts into a physical form and thereby bring it into a manifestation. So there's nothing in this universe that didn't exist at some point. We just think differently and we bring it from the unmanifest into the manifest. This is how all innovations come. Anything in the universe, touch screens, rockets, submarines, glass spectacles, machinery, whatever it is, all of these concepts, which is why we say there was all concepts in potential at some point. And what did a human being do? They sat under a tree or whatever. They thought about, how do I bring more improvements to people's lives? And they created things like, a phone, right? Or sometimes the person will just play along and they will create an accidental invention like Velcro or microwave or post-it notes. This is all accidental inventions. But either way, those inventions were in the unmanifest. Now, what does this mean? You can spend your whole life collapsing infinite potentials given to you. And how long is that going to last? How long is that going to keep you circling around in this wheel? Because infinite is going to require infinite amount of lifetimes to keep on circulating. Or you can collapse one possibility, only one, out of all of the other infinite, which gives you infinity itself. So I can either spend infinite amount of years collapsing infinite possibilities, or I can collapse one possibility, which is moksha, by whose collapsing I automatically gain infinity. Which one do you want? And infinity doesn't exclude anything, by the way. So this is also given to a human being. And so as we start to collapse different possibilities, we say, this is not working, this is not working, this is not working, until one life, the person says, enough. Enough of collapsing infinite possibilities. Enough of traveling to swargas, to heaven, to being this, being that, becoming this person in society, becoming this or that. These are all fine, but there's one life that every single jiva eventually comes to. Eventually. And there's a click. It's something happens. You say, no, I don't think I want to keep on collapsing. I want to go for something. I want to go for the ultimate. So no jiva will escape this. Until that happens, what does a jiva do? They're on the roller coasters, playing around. Life is so good. The girlfriends, boyfriends, going out, a lot of fun. Not for long. Not for long. So every single jiva comes to the, what do we call it? The dark night of the soul, I think, right? To that moment where you can't get yourself to see the enjoyment. It's almost like, yeah, but this, I'm not trying to like disregard things in the world. I'm not trying to be dismissive. There's something in you that's calling you for something higher. And you have no choice but to follow that voice. Because the more we postpone it, the more it just keeps getting louder and louder and louder. So until then, let the children play. I was once in Amazon with the Peru doing ayahuasca. I've done it many times. And someone else who was doing it, they had a profound insight. We all have profound insights, right? This is normal. But he said something to me I will never forget. He asked the question, what do we do about all of these wars and all of this nonsense that's going on in the world? And the answer that came through was, let the children play. Let the children play. And I never forgot that for some reason. And it's exactly what Vedanta says. Let the person keep on playing in this samsara chakra until they recognize there's no real depth, there's no real value in endless collapsing of this and that's. And that's the stage where you finally, right, you just get attracted to the guru, to the teaching, and then your journey officially starts then. You're for the first time ever since beginningless time, your journey has actually taken a completely different turn. All of the other lifetimes was just playing around, just playing in this chakra, jumping up and down, and it all seemed very like serious, and I was doing this, and it all mattered. I'm being someone, I'm a business owner, I'm this, I'm an engineer, I'm a doctor, we got 98 out of 100, all being someone. And then you come to a point and you recognize, that was just a stepping stone. Not even a It's just a stepping stone. For what? For this. And then the Gita comes into your life and you're totally blown away. Like, how did this come into my life? I was totally unexpected, totally unexpected. I was just going around my business. This happened. Someone cheated me. Someone went away from my band. And suddenly this showed up. And you just flabbergasted completely. So this is Ishvara's grace, right? You have seen enough and somehow you have come to this point. Until then, what do I do about the other jivas? Well, I don't know who they are. I will only know who they are when they come to the class. Until then, it's not my job to fix them. It's not your job to get entangled because the world is too large, too many people to fix. So you cannot spend your whole life just, you're not going to, until the person is ready, they're not going to hear you. Lorena?
I think for me, it was just seeing the limitation in everything, every situation, every product, everything that I sought, just seeing that limitation. So you might have a high for a minute and then
Yeah,
you're just back to normal the next day. And you just,
exactly. Yeah.
it's like everything's limited. I think that was that point of where I started to ask, what is limitless?
Yeah, exactly. So this is, and this is what we call Viveka. So eventually start to see the limitations in all experiences, in all, and it's not like you're trying to just, it's not a derogatory attitude towards the world. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just that the discrimination capacity has gotten to a very discerning state where that's just how it is. And therefore, then later, right, you start to kind of search and search and search, and someone comes into your life. And then the journey slowly starts to begin. And who they are, who comes into your life, who's the teacher, who's the tradition, you don't know. But the point is, they come into your life. Now, is this something that you planned? Ishvara's grace. You see, so we don't call the shots here. This is why we say Ishvara's grace is earned. Until I had Ishvara's grace, what was I getting? Just more samsara chakra, being this, being that. You see, so there's a much larger order here in whom we are all participants of. And by our participation, we come to the teaching eventually. And you're just, you're just blown away how the turn of events that happened to get to you where you are right now. So that's something that is beyond our scope. Why? Because it was all in the unmanifest. And through my actions, I started to do the right things slowly, and I collapsed different options. And finally, through weaving, through this life of challenges, you come to that maturity and you start to say, there's limitations here. And it's exactly the same for me, Lorena. I was just innocent, like, yeah, it's lovely to have this relationship, but I just, you can't handle it. In fact, the very same thing happened, just a little story, is my last relationship was actually exactly like Buddha's relationship. Is that, right? Perfect family. There was, they were not my kids. There was someone, but there was kids loved me. We all had a lovely family. And nothing wrong in the relationship. There was lots of love there. But I just couldn't get this thought out of my head. And that thought was, there's a bigger drive in me. There's a bigger pull. Even if I was right in front of her, right, like that, the voice of pursuit of moksha was just so much louder. And I just couldn't stand. I had to say to her, I'm sorry, I just can't go forward anymore because I can't rest until this problem is solved in me. Innocent voice that just, you can't help it. And you follow that no matter what. So even that requires grace, because most do what? Oh, it's comfortable. Perfect relationship. Let's stay here. So in other words, I'm now collapsing one more thing that I've been collapsing since beginningless time, just more relationships. So this is the power of listening, not only having that discrimination, but listening to that voice and just doing what has to be done.
I had a question. How do you define Ishwar? Who is Ishwar or what is Ishwar?
Sure. So
Conceptualize Ishwar.
Ishvara in Sanskrit is Sarvajna, Sarvashakti. Sarvajna, Sarvashakti means all knowledge, all power. And I'll just give you a small logic now. So for example, if you have a pot maker, right? A pot maker. Now, how much does a pot maker have to know about how to make a pot? Of course, right? The pot maker knows how to make a pot. So this means the pot maker, whoever they are, wherever they are, they have to have knowledge of the pot, okay? So now in Sanskrit, we say this is ghatasya karta ghatanyaha. The pot maker has knowledge of the pot. But now, if you look at the world, in whom not only is the pot, right, the clay related to the soil is related to the earth related to the air, to the space, then since it's all related, then Ishvara, it becomes sarvajna karta sarvajnaha, one who has all knowledge of everything. Okay, so this means Ishvara has to have knowledge of not only the sun, but also knowledge of the plants, right? Because photosynthesis will have to interact with the sun. Have to have knowledge of the birds, right, who will eat the plants, have to have knowledge of the entire ecosystem, has to have knowledge of everything because everything is connected. So therefore, Ishvara becomes not limited knowledge, but limitless knowledge because everything is within Ishvara. So whatever is within Ishvara, Ishvara has to have knowledge how to make the heart, right, beat just strong enough to negate the effects of gravity. So it has to be able to pump blood from the feet upwards. So this means Ishvara has to know the correlation between gravity and also how strong a heart has to be. And what else is Ishvara? Sarva Shakti, all power. It just means, for example, you and I, we can only lift whatever. We can lift a little bit, right? We can lift maybe 100 kilograms or whatever, 50. But Ishvara can lift the entire planet, right? He can lift the entire planet and insistently hold that planet in the orbit of the sun without making one movement closer or farther away from the sun. For how long? For billions of years. Never does the earth get accidentally closer to the sun or farther away. Now, could you do this in your own life to wake up and just have a 100% protocol? Okay, I need to do this and this and this, and you never miss it one bit. We're going to forget totally. And yet Ishvara is maintaining my life, my past causes, your past causes, everyone's past causes, the past causes of trillions of ants, of mosquitoes, of every creature in every realm in this world, is holding the planets in orbit, doesn't make one mistake, which is why we say Ishvara is infallible. Everything else and everyone else is fallible. I will make mistakes, you will make mistakes, everyone makes mistakes, but the only one that doesn't make a mistake is Ishvara. For example, if Ishvara forgot to, to hold gravity, it just forgot to hold gravity 1 second, what would happen, right? Everyone would just magically go up and then fall down. So Ishvara never skips one beat. So in this sense, what is Ishvara? It is all knowledge and all power. And from this all knowledge, all power, we have laws that manifest, laws of destruction, laws of gravity, laws of physiology, psychology. I was just looking at, cute dog videos. I like dog videos. And what happened, there was this experiment where the parent was, gently patting the little son. The little son was about 2 years old. And the dog was watching from a distance. And the dog had no problems. Now, this is just a prank. And now the parent pushes, as though pushes the son. And instantly the dog gets up and protects the little one. And this is amazing. So this is already intelligence in a dog that's built in. And to whom does this intelligence that a dog has, to whom does it belong? To the one who is sarvajnaha, to the one who is all knowledge. So that all knowledge gets spread. A little bit of that knowledge gets put in a dog. A little bit of that knowledge gets put in an elephant, gets put in a bird, gets put in a human being, gets put in ants, gets put in a bee. And so a bee has knowledge that you and I don't have. A dog has knowledge. For example, its senses are a lot more sensitive that you and I don't have. And who decides how much a dog is going to be able to, how sensitive those olfactory senses will be? Who decides that? Does a dog do this? No. The one who is sarvajna, the one who is all knowledge. So all knowledge distributes its knowledge according to different species, and every species enjoys whose knowledge, whose manifestation is it? The one who is all knowledge, all power. So therefore, what is Ishvara? The one from whom not only laws come, but all forms come. And these forms interact within these laws.
Is there a difference between Brahman and Ishwar?
Yes.
Or are they same?
Yes. So Ishvara is all knowledge and all power, right here, concepts. And the truth of all knowledge and all power is Brahman, consciousness. So ultimately, even concepts, Ishvara, resolves into Brahman. Yes. However, I want you to be very careful with this, because this is where a lot of teachings in Vedanta go wrong, is that we separate, right, Ishvara and Brahman. And we love to, for some reason, to do this. Oh, if you're speaking about Brahman, keep it into Brahman. Don't confuse us with Ishvara. Remember, wherever there is Mithya, that's exactly where Satyam is. Wherever there is pot, that's exactly where its content is. So wherever there is Ishvara, that's exactly where awareness is also. So like this, I want you to keep this in mind, which we will repeat over and over again, that if I speak about Ishvara, what am I ultimately talking about? Am I just talking about knowledge and power? No, I'm talking about forms, I'm talking about laws, and I'm talking about awareness all at the same time. Now you can ask, how do I show that there is laws and forms? Well, laws are physiological laws, right? Psychological laws, it's always operating. Forms are there, the laws are there. We did an analysis that all laws and all forms reduce into concepts, because you can't have intelligent, right, laws and forms come together unless there's intelligence. And you can't have intelligence outside of awareness. You can't have, right, concepts putting things together unless that's in the presence of a conscious being. So all of them are there. Brahman is here, awareness is here, intelligence is here, laws are here that are governing this universe, forms are here.
Yeah, now this, I want to put it across the way I know it. Please correct it if I'm wrong, right? When we talk of Ishwar, we talk of Ishwar in context with everybody else. He is a controller. He is all knowledge, all power. He is a Sarvgyata, and he controls the universe.
Yes.
Now, since we talk like this, there's a duality in the talk. So Ishwar becomes part of Vyavaharik Satya. He becomes part of Vyavaharik Satya because there is no duality in Paramarthic Satya. So therefore, within this experiential reality, we are the ones who are calling, as experientially, we create Ishwar, we create that, we call it Ishwar, what Brahman is manifesting as Jagat. But when we realize that everything is Brahman, then the concept of Ishvara has to go, and what remains only is Brahm, and that is when we realize that we are in Paramarthic Satya now. The Ishwar disappears once Brahman, all pervasive, is visible to the Jiva.
I wouldn't put it like this. Ishvara nothing disappears. Understand this. Reality is already as it is. See, the forms are here. Now, can I call this, right? There's a certain reality to this, Gautam. I can't just go ahead and say this is Brahman, okay? Because Brahman is formless. And the only place where Brahman is known to you is in your intellect, is in your, right, as I am, as an awareful, self-evident I. You have to also account forms. You have to account laws. You have to account intelligence. And you also have to account awareness. So we're not saying that, yes, I understand the statement. You say, all that is here is Brahman. But what understanding do you have to have for you to say that? When you say all that is here is Brahman, what do you actually mean? Without saying it directly. What you actually mean is there's also forms, which is not different from Brahman. There's also world, which is not different from Brahman. There's also intelligence, which is not different from Brahman. So rather than having this black or white, there's only Brahman, you have to, through your Satya Mithya understanding, also account everything else simultaneously, because there's no contradiction between table and wood. A table has a reality of a name and form, but is that table any different from its reality of the wood? No.
Yeah, I have one.
So this means I understand wherever there is form, wherever there is table, that's where its truth is. the wood. Wherever the wood is, that's where its truth is, the atoms. Wherever the atoms are, that's where their truth is, concepts. Wherever concepts are, that's where their truth is, final awareness. So rather than just saying there's only awareness, I account all realities at once and understand there is no contradiction between any of them.
I just want to ask one more, because
Please.
this, if doesn't get clarified now, this will beat the whole thing for me.
And by the way, we're not actually in the right kind of part of the Gita to clarify this, because I know what's coming, right? There's so much more in the Gita coming, and I can promise you so many prakriyas and methods will be expounded. It's just so much knowledge is coming, but it's in the further chapters. So even if you don't kind of get it now, it totally doesn't matter. Okay, go ahead.
Just one thing. Now, when Shankaracharya says Jagat Mithya, he dismisses Jagat, but Jagat is Vyavaharik Satya.
He doesn't dismiss Jagat. He just calls Jagat Mithya. Wherever there's Mithya, that's where Satyam is.
Yeah. So basically, in first level of understanding, when you divide everything to Atma and Anatma, Jad and Chetan, Jagat becomes Mithya at that level of understanding. But later you realize that it is Vivartvad. It is just Vivartvad. It is just, you are not able to recognize Jagat as Brahm. Jagat is the form of Brahm. Ishwar is the intelligent cause and the material cause. So therefore, recognize Ishwar or Brahm as formless also, and as everything within the form also. It transcends form also and remains formless also. So therefore, Jagat, which has been realized as Mithya once, later on gets realized as Satya also. And therefore, everything becomes non-dual, single. No Ishwar, not Jagat, single. He has not mentioned, he said Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. He's never used the word Ishvara anywhere in between.
Yeah, because he's using just only one prakriya, Gautam. There are many scriptures, there are many Upanishads, and every prakriya has a part. This is why one prakriya means method, or method by which I show you the final reality. Every prakriya has a place. So this is why you will have in some Upanishads, right, they will say that the mind, subtle body gets whatever, removed upon death. Other Upanishads will say the subtle body upon death gets reprogrammed. So you say, why are they saying a different thing? If they keep on saying the same thing, you're going to get so bored hearing the same thing. This is why they keep on changing the methodologies, not the methodologies as a whole, but changing the prakriyas within the methodology to keep you constantly hooked. Otherwise, if you want to have this kind of if we kind of go, no, this is what, he says, Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. He doesn't mention Ishvara, so therefore, where's this Ishvara now? The moment we start to look at it like this, then what are we doing to everything else? We're just discarding it. This is just one statement that Adi Shankara said. So verse 28, and I want just to close. So getting back, what is it saying here is that nothing in the universe is going out of existence. It just goes from one state to the other. For example, E equals mc squared, right? Energy goes into matter and matter goes into energy. Now, when I say energy, this term energy, people in spirituality love to use. So whenever science uses energy like thermonuclear energy or heat energy or fire energy, always refers to this much, the universe, time, space, and objects within the universe. It doesn't even refer to the 5 elements. Okay? So therefore, when I say E equals mc squared, energy converts into matter and matter converts into energy, whatever you want. You can say the sun, right, converts into, into chemical energy, which is matter, of course, for the plants, and vice versa. So therefore, it shows you that science, right, basic science, you split the uranium atom into a half. What happens? You create energy. This is how we have nuclear power stations. We have a sun. You have a hydrogen atom. When you combine its protons together, what happens? You create a helium atom, and that is what creates what's called nuclear fusion. That's what creates our sun. It's just a bunch of protons coming together under high pressure due to the gravitational force, and it creates energy release, and you feel it on your skin. So therefore, energy into matter, matter into energy. Nothing in this universe, in any way you look at it, goes out of existence. So even if you don't attain moksha, you don't go out of existence. You just find yourself, right here. In fact, never mind future. Why are you and I here now? Because we haven't gone out of existence in a past life. Here we are again, just wearing a different instrument. The fact that nothing goes out of existence, does this give ourselves permission to use or mistreat this body and say, oh, I can do whatever I want now with this body? Does it mean it's giving us permission? Not at all. Even if you have permission to misuse your body, actually, according to the scriptures, you don't have permission. Why? Because you only have permission to misuse something if you created it and it's yours entirely. But the very material that you're using, you didn't create. So you were more like blessed this body. You were given this body and said, here, use it. It's the greatest gift you can have in the universe. A Manushya Janma. Manushya means a thinking being. That means you're given a body that's able to ask the question, what is my truth in this universe? What is my truth? And by that virtue, it is the greatest gift, because no animal can ask the question, only a human being can ask the question. So this means it is to be used wisely and to the best of your abilities. And according to the scriptures, the best ability that it can be used for is to firmly ascertain your nature and to do what is to be done while living. Now, when will this manifest and unmanifest? When will it end for you? When will this constant cycle end? This will be in verse 29. Let's see. Verse 29. Ascharyavat pashyati kashchidenam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha. Ascharyavat chainam anyah shrnoti. Shrutva pyenam vedana chaiva kaschita.
One looks upon the self as a wonder. Similarly, another speaks of it as a wonder, and another hears it as a wonder. Still another, even after hearing about this self, does not understand it at all.
When we're brought into this world, then the natural assumption is, I am as good as my body and mind, right? And by that virtue, you're not satisfied because the body is very limited naturally. So because it's not a satisfactory state to be wearing this little instrument, which is amazing, of course, but it's not, right? It's not limitless. Naturally, you want to go out into the world and, get yourself a pet or, whatever, a partner or whatever, right? You just want to have things into your life because it's going to add more it's going to embellish your life. So what happens is you end up going, into the world and applying more actions, right? And each one of these actions, entangles you more and more and more. And this is natural, right? If you work, then you have to now deal with the colleagues. It's not just a matter of going to work. You have to deal with everyone there. And then you go to a coffee break. And so there's a whole story about just wearing this body and mind. Now, in the Vedas, we don't have this linear progress like we have in the West. So in the West, you have this linear progress. You just start here and there's a continuation. When you look at all of your lifetimes together, there is no such thing as linearity. There's no this. It's like a stock market. So this means someone like Elvis Presley, right? Or Michael Jackson or some great singer or movie star, they can start out very high up. And by misusing one's free will, they can drop down. And then next life, we don't know, right, who they are. They can, of course, then, come back and like this, right, life after life. So this means that even if you're given a very high privileged position, as I said initially, it doesn't mean that I am now, safe. You need to keep on earning new punyam all the time through new actions. Also, even if you are born in a highly privileged position, such as the royal, like there was a story of Prince Charles, who was giving at his age 35 a great, amazing speech, and he got a standing ovation or something. But Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth was there, And she didn't, for a moment, she didn't clap. She just sort of walked away. And Prince Charles, being about 35, he noticed this, that his mother was not impressed by his brilliant speech. So after he finished his speech, what happened? He had to book an appointment to see his mother. Imagine that, booking an appointment, and your mother says, you know, you come at 9:30, dear son, client of mine. So he finally found time to see his mother, and he says, I gave an amazing speech, people loved it, and you showed no emotion. I was hurt by that. So what does this show you? Even if you are in the most privileged position possible, you still have basic human needs. It doesn't matter whether the person's a president or a king or a queen, basic human needs, no different than anyone else.
It also makes me question what is wealth and what is being rich, because you could be rich financially, but very poor in a family situation like that, where you can't actually even speak to your own parent.
Yeah, exactly. So what does it mean to be wealthy? What does it mean to be rich? It's not just, right, your privileged position, but it's also rich in your emotions, rich in your unity with, right, with the world. So like this, it shows us that we're not able to, right, kind of end the cycle of looking for satisfaction. You can also be born in a very low position, and then you can rise up. You can rise up from a basic worker to, you know, a scholar, to a thinker, to a philosopher, and this is also very much a possibility. So of course, you know, it's endless possibilities. So it doesn't matter where you start from. This whole system, by the way, of caste, where you're born in a position. See, every culture, right, has a history to it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% correct. So there are some improvements that you can make. Just if you are born in a kind of a, you know, worker or an employee, does that mean you are bound to remain there? Not at all. Unless you want to say, no, Ishvara put me here. I'm not supposed to be someone bigger. So this is again choosing one of those possibilities to collapse, where you are equally given a possibility to say, I'm going to rise up. So like this, what happens is whichever position you can uplift yourself. Now, eventually, as the person is uplifting themselves and making their life work for them, they come to a point of recognizing the problem of limitation. Everything until now was giving me fullness, but then somehow the intellect says, it's not going to give me fullness for much longer. And that's when the second question of Arjuna pops up finally. And he says, is my life as good as just going about, right, warfare and family and wife and all of this? Or am I as good as this body and mind? So this question just arises like that. Now, the answer to this is a wonder. The answer to this is you don't know, right? It's a mystery. But even if you find the right teacher and the tradition, what's also a wonder is that one student will totally get it and they will connect to the words. They're not even from the culture. They just walk in and they're just connecting to the words somehow. The other student is hearing the exact same information, the exact same time in the studies is being spent, the exact same examples are being told, the exact same logic is being provided, and it goes over their head. That's also a wonder, isn't it? How? How can two students, two minds be receiving the exact same information, the exact same methodology, which has worked for eons and continues to work, and one is not connecting and the other is connecting? That's a wonder. What's also a wonder, for example, in Kena Upanishad, there's an example of two boys. One of the boys was brilliant. I think this was chapter 3 or 4 in Kena Upanishad. And the teacher gave the entire Upanishads discourse. And one of the students was so brilliant that when they were asked what is the nature of Brahman, they even impressed the teacher. Do you know what they said? So suppose I ask you now, who are you? Explain to me, Brahman, explain to me who you are. And you give such an amazing answer that even the teacher is blown away. Now, what did the student say? He says, teacher, I can't say that I know Brahman, but I also can't say that I don't know Brahman. Now, some students who hear this, it will go over their head. Others who just heard this, you will connect to this, what I just said. I can't say that I know awareness, which is the final reality. I also can't say that I don't know awareness. Would someone like to explain this?
It's self-evident my awareness that I exist.
Mm-hmm.
But of course I'm limited because of this sense capacity I've been given in a limited instrument. So I can't know the total Ishwara's all knowledge and all power.
Okay, that's one way.
But I have the ability to self-reflect and ask those questions about existence itself.
Good.
And know that my awareness has no attributes, no defining attributes. So therefore it's unlimited in its true nature.
So I can cognitively and intelligently know that I exist, I am, everybody exists, everybody is. But since the consciousness is the ultimate subject, I cannot know it because it is the subject itself. That's how I can say that I know consciousness intelligently, cognitively, but I do not know it because it is the ultimate subject. It is the one which will know. So I can't know.
Okay, this is closer. Okay, this is much, much closer to what the student said. Okay. Pankaj, you have your hand up?
What I want to say is that I understand what is bottoms up, my view of the reality, but I do not know what is the reality's view of me. So I do not have top-down understanding of the reality, but I have a bottoms up realization of the reality.
Okay, this is a way of looking at it, but this is not what the student has said. Okay. It's fine. I love that we're all trying. It doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer for now. It's just a practice. Arkiri?
The thing I like about this one is that it can be answered in so many different ways. That's what I like about it. But my interpretation at the moment is that I can't say that I know Brahman. I can't say that I don't know Brahman because I am Brahman.
Okay.
There isn't something to know. What would it be that's doing the knowing, for example?
Okay, this is even closer. Yep. Okay, it's probably exactly. Okay, Michael?
I was going to say, because Brahman is unmanifest, it can't be known as an object, and yet to some extent it's not separate from me. So I am aware, therefore I don't know awareness because I'm aware.
Oh, okay. So what Michael would be closest. So and Arkiri would be the two closest together. So I think Michael just got it 1% closer than Arkiri did. But I think it's just a matter of words, semantics. It's not a matter of right or wrong. So what the student specifically said is that, hey, teacher, I can't say that I don't know Brahman because you've just taught us the entire Upanishads, right? We've heard all of the prakriyas. You've explained the Satyamiti relationship. And I am that, right? So I can't say that I know that. I don't know that. But I also can't say that I know Brahman because to know Brahman is to, right, objectify it. So in fact, Michael and Arkiri said it even better than the students said. So this is wonderful. Okay. So this is an amazing answer. Now the other student says, you know what the other student said? Hey, teacher, when do we begin the Upanishads? That was the last verse of the Upanishads. And the teacher said, and the student says, hey, teacher, now that you've, said this introductory, when does the good stuff come? When does the real good, like the real meat of the content come? On the last verse of the Upanishads. Can you see this? In other words, even after hearing all of these prakriyas, what's the mind thinking? Oh, no, there's better stuff out there. This is amazing how the mind loves to do this. There's better teachers, better explanations, better words, better this, better traditions, better this, better. It's all better over there. This is the mind. That's a wonder why it does that in the first place. It's also a wonder who your teacher is and who the tradition is that you're in. Because sometimes, how do we imagine, right? Who's my teacher going to be? It's going to be probably some, old person, really wise in the mountains, in the Himalayas. They've got barely anything. They're probably, maybe a Swami or, did you ever like think who your teacher will be and who your actual teacher is? Was there any correlation between the two? There's hardly a correlation between the two. Where your teacher actually comes from, where they're actually born, what culture they're actually from, you don't know. That is a wonder. I have no clue who's the teacher going to be or what tradition I'll be put. But there's one thing for sure. The teacher that you do get resonates with your mind. There's something that you're connecting with to the teacher. They're speaking your language. They're speaking in a way that you can connect with. That much is clear. So usually we say you get the teacher that you deserve, right? So if you're into doing actions, a lot of actions, then what kind of a teacher will you get? One who is going to tell you, breathe, pranayama, asana, 5 times a day, for 3 hours a day, for 7 days a week, for 5 years at a time, and then come back to me, and you will follow that. And then when you come out of that, right, you will find some other teacher. So like this, you always get the teacher that you deserve. What we are doing is figuring out what is the nature of myself, Ishvara, the universe, the Jagat, and everything else. And how does this knowledge take place? Through the methodology. Now, what's a methodology? It's just sounds, just a bunch of sounds. That's what English language is. Imagine if I spoke to you in Chinese. And you're going, wow, wow. It's just sounds. Whether it's English, it's sounds. Whether it's Chinese, whether it's Sanskrit, it's going to be sounds. Sounds are solving the beginningless problem of not knowing who I am. Sounds are connecting me to Ishvara. Sounds are removing my ignorance of thinking myself as these 3 bodies. Sounds are bringing me closer to the truth. Just sounds. Isn't that a wonder? Now, according to the verse, that's why the whole thing is a wonder. What does the verse say? It says, those who look upon the self, right, as a wonder. That means, what is the self? Is it an object? Is it something over there? Another speaks of it as a wonder. That means it's spoken of, it's thought of as this thing that's perhaps away from you. Another hears of it as a wonder. Another, even after hearing about the self, does not understand it at all. The whole thing is just a wonder how it all happens. But what we do know is Ishvara's grace certainly comes one life, and you're able to slowly connect to the words and connect to the tradition and the guru and the methodology, which is just a matter of sounds. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.